Chapter 380. After the guards left, a faint smile appeared on Xianxian's face. He raised his right hand slightly and a spatial ring flew out of the window and into Xianxian's hand. This spatial ring was the spatial ring that contained the seal of Treasure Mountain and the broken cloud sword. Once the spatial ring was in his hand, Xianxian immediately checked the items inside. He discovered that the seal of Treasure Mountain and the broken cloud sword, the two king armaments, were quietly lying inside. They had not been lost. Xianxian's heart was filled with unconcealable joy. He knew that the third elder of the Shi family had a way to find the king armaments, and the spatial ring containing the king armaments had been hidden in the Huangpu family for many days without being discovered by them. This made him feel extremely fortunate. On the way here, Xianxian was worried that the king armaments he had hidden in the Huangpu family would be found by the two families using a secret method. But now, it seemed that his worries were completely unnecessary. Xianxian let out a sigh of relief. A trace of unconcealable joy appeared on his face as he slowly closed his eyes. After 2 breaths of time, the cover of the Huangpu family's well suddenly burst open. A fist-sized purple gold box flew out of the well. As if it was attracted by a mysterious force, it directly fell into Xianxian's hand. Xianxian opened the purple gold box and saw a silver-white spatial ring quietly lying inside. Xianxian took out the spatial ring and put it on his hand. Then he threw the spatial ring containing the king armaments and the purple gold box into the spatial ring he wore on his hand and flew away. Not long after Xianxian left, a large group of people hurriedly arrived at the place where Xianxian had just landed. Each and every one of them had a nervous expression. The person at the front was the Huangpu family's patriarch. However, since Xianxian had already left, the Huangpu family's patriarch sent people to search for him but to no avail. Xianxian flew through the air and quickly left Bright Sun City. Along the way, many people on the streets of Bright Sun City raised their heads to look at the sky. Their eyes were filled with envy and worship. Xianxian did not stay in Bright Sun City for long. His top priority was to find the white tiger's whereabouts. He was extremely worried about the white tiger's safety. In the air, Xianxian took out the white fur that Rum Guinness had given him from his spatial ring. This fur could not only find Rum Guinness' whereabouts, but it could also help him find the white tiger's whereabouts. Xianxian used the furs method. The furs originally soft hare's fur and became straight as a compass, the hare's fur. The fur, ant's fur, fur's fur. Xianxian's gaze followed the direction of the fur's direction and discovered that it was actually the Myriad Mountains he had just come from. Could it be that the white tiger ran into the Myriad Mountains? Xianxian's heart trembled as his expression changed. The Myriad Mountains were connected to the Traversing Mountain Range, and one of the 2 kings of the Traversing Mountain Range was the white tiger's greatest enemy. If the white tiger fell into his hands, it would definitely die. Crap, I hope the white tiger won't be discovered by the king of the Traversing Mountain Range. Xianxian's expression became solemn. He no longer hesitated and immediately flew in the direction of the fur's direction. For hours later, Xianxian's direction had deviated from Longevity Valley. He was now far away from the Myriad Mountains, flying towards the Traversing Mountain Range that was connected to the Myriad Mountains. As he got closer to the Traversing Mountain Range, Xianxian's expression became more and more unsightly. Right now, he was almost certain that the white tiger was already in the Traversing Mountain Range. Xianxian stopped moving forward and floated in the air with a frown. If the white tiger was really captured by the king of the Traversing Mountain Range, then with his own strength, he would undoubtedly be sending himself to his death in vain. At this time, Uncle Xiu's voice suddenly appeared in Xianxian's mind, making Xianxian feel as if he had suddenly grasped onto a life-saving straw. Don't tell me I should ask Uncle Xiu for help? Xianxian muttered, unable to make up his mind for a moment. Uncle Xiu's cultivation was unfathomable. Perhaps only he had the strength to contend against the king of the Gilligan clan. However, Uncle Xiu was tired of the struggles of the world and lived a peaceful life isolated from the world. Xianxian didn't want to disturb Uncle Xiu's peaceful life because of his own matters. After all, the Gilligan clan in the Traversing Mountain Range was a huge power. He didn't want to cause trouble for Uncle Xiu. Moreover, it was still unknown whether Uncle Xiao would help him or not. Jianchen floated in the air and hesitated for a moment. In the end, he gritted his teeth and continued to follow the direction of the fur. Right now, he still couldn't confirm whether the white tiger had been captured by the king of the Gilligan clan. If the white tiger had been captured by a powerful magical beast, then there was still a chance to turn the situation around. Jianchen used the fur as a compass and flew in the air for several hours. Finally, he stopped above a mountain peak and scanned the area below with a sharp gaze. Jianchen's current location was at the intersection of the 100,000 Mountains and the Traversing Mountain Range. Below him was a gathering place of spirit apes. A large number of spirit apes were standing high up in the branches and looking up at Jianchen. They bared their teeth at Jianchen and squeaked. Jianchen looked at the fur. From the direction it was pointing, Jianchen clearly knew that the white tiger was nearby. Jianchen carefully put away the fur left behind by the white tiger. His gaze was somewhat grave as he scanned the area below. He was certain that he had already arrived at the nest of the spirit apes. This was because there were tens of thousands of spirit apes gathered below him. There were a lot of them. Moreover, there were still many spirit apes rushing over after hearing the news. Among them were the auras of Class 5 magical beasts. If he wasn't floating 1,000 meters in the air, he would have been surrounded by a large group of spirit apes. At this time, a few golden figures flew up from below. 5 3-meter-tall spirit apes with golden fur flew over and surrounded Jianchen. They stared at Jianchen with a pair of ominous eyes. Jianchen's expression became very solemn. He had really underestimated these spirit apes. He didn't expect that there were Class 6 spirit apes hidden among them. Moreover, there were 5 of them. Facing 5 Class 6 magical beasts at the same time, Jianchen didn't dare to be careless. With a thought, the dense leaves of the forest below broke off from the branches and floated into the air. In the end, every leaf flashed with purple and green sword chi and flew to Jianchen's side. They wrapped around Jianchen's body layer by layer. Such a strange ability stunned the surrounding 5 Class 6 spirit apes. Then, the ominous light in the eyes of one of the spirit apes suddenly became stronger. With a strange cry, it waved its fists and attacked Jianchen with a powerful energy fluctuation. A small portion of the leaves that wrapped around Jianchen immediately split into 2 long swords to meet the spirit ape. Boom! When the two collided, a loud explosion sounded in the air. The 2 long swords formed by the leaves were immediately scattered by the 2 fists of the spirit ape. On the fists of the spirit ape, 2 shocking bloody scars quietly appeared. Fresh red blood continuously flowed out from the wounds. Seeing the bloody scars on the fists of the spirit ape that attacked, the other spirit apes were clearly stunned. Their eyes revealed a very human expression of shock. They didn't seem to understand how the fragile leaves could become so sharp. Zhi. Immediately, one of the spirit apes let out a sound that Jianchen couldn't understand. This sound was like an order. When the sound was heard, the 5 spirit apes simultaneously waved their fists and attacked Jianchen. The attack was very simple. Jianchen's eyes flickered with a purple and green light. With a thought, the leaves surrounding him immediately fluttered. In the blink of an eye, they formed 10 long swords. With a purple and green sword chi, they shot towards the 5 spirit apes. Following a few violent explosions, the 5 spirit apes all waved their iron fists to disperse Jianchen's attack. However, a deep wound appeared on their fists at the same time. The attacks of the 5 rank 6 spirit apes did not stop because of this. At the same time, they waved their fists with surging energy, aiming for the vital points of Jianchen's body. The iron fists broke through the air, bringing with it a vast power that practically sealed off every inch of space that Jianchen could escape from. Jianchen's hands moved in the air. The leaves that were floating around him immediately moved. With a faint purple and green sword chi, they shot towards the 5 spirit apes like moths to a flame. The 5 spirit apes all knew the power of the purple and green sword chi. The energy on their fists surged even more. In the end, it actually condensed into a pair of yellow gloves on their fists that were indestructible. Then, they waved their iron fists again and again, scattering the leaves that were shooting towards them. However, There were too many of these leaves. They were densely packed, overlapping almost every inch of space in front of them. How could the fists of the 5 spirit apes disperse all of them? Many of the leaves that carried the purple and green sword chi shot towards their bodies. They easily broke through the layer of fur on the surface of their bodies, which was not weak in defense. They shot into their bodies and left behind wounds. Fresh red blood flowed out from their wounds and quickly dyed their golden fur red. Zhi. The 5 spirit apes cried out one after another. Their voices were a little panicked. Soon after, a surge of earth attribute energy surged out from their bodies. In the end, it actually condensed into a yellow armor on the surface of their bodies, covering every inch of their bodies. The defense of the Kai clan that was completely condensed from earth attribute energy was very strong. When the leaves that carried the purple and green sword chi shot towards the armor, they could only leave behind deep marks. They were actually unable to break the armor in a short period of time. Xianxia took advantage of this opportunity to retreat, escaping from the encirclement of the 5 spirit apes. Then he raised his hands in the air. Dozens of large trees below suddenly exploded, filling the sky with wood shavings. They formed a torrent that flew straight up from below. Then, with a faint purple and green sword chi, they continuously shot towards the 5 spirit apes. In an instant, the 5 spirit apes were submerged. However, the 5 spirit apes were protected by their armor. They did not even look at the wood shavings below them. They waved their iron fists and chased after Xianxia. Xianxia quickly retreated. At this time, the torrent of wood shavings below had already wrapped around the 5 spirit apes. The sky full of wood shavings continuously shot towards the 5 spirit apes, creating a dense ding-ding-dang-dang sound. Receiving such a dense attack, the armor on the spirit apes that was completely condensed from earth attribute energy was immediately riddled with holes. Just as it was about to shatter, a surge of energy once again leaked out from their bodies. Not only did it withstand the attack of the wood shavings, it also reformed the armor that was about to shatter. Then, withstanding the dense attack around them, they quickly rushed towards Xianxia. Xianxia's eyes glowed with a purple and green light. In his right hand, a pure sword chi slowly appeared, forming a 4-foot-long sword chi in Xianxia's hand. At this moment, Xianxia used the origin energy of the sword spirits. Although normal attacks could injure a Class 6 magical beast, they were unable to kill it. In order to kill or heavily injure a Class 6 magical beast, Xianxia could only use the sword chi. Chapter 381. When Xianxia used the origin energy of the azure and violet sword chi, the 5 Class 6 spiritual apes seemed to sense the threat the origin energy of the azure and violet sword chi posed to them. Their gazes immediately became somewhat stern, but that was not enough to scare them off. They all charged at Xianxia at the same time with squeaking sounds. Their iron fists tore through the air and powerful ripples of energy caused the surrounding space to distort slightly. Xianxia's eyes had already turned into a strange purplish-green color. His left eye was purple, and his right eye was green. It was incomparably demonic, as if he was a demon. The origin energy of the sword spirits was like a pillar of light that did not disperse in his hands. It constantly pulsed and spat out a powerful and sharp sword chi that filled the air. It was as if the surrounding air was dyed into strands of invisible sword chi. With a flash of purplish-green light, the origin energy of the sword chi left behind a beautiful trail of light in the air as it pierced towards the 5 spiritual apes. Kacha! With 5 crisp sounds, the incomparably hard gloves on the fists of the 5 spiritual apes were shattered. The origin energy of the sword spirits left behind a beautiful trail of light in the air before disappearing. It left a deep wound on the fists of the 5 spiritual apes. The wound was so deep that it almost cut their fists in half. Squeak, squeak. The intense pain caused the 5 spiritual apes to let out ear-piercing screams. Each of them grimaced in pain. Looking at their fists that had been cut in half, the 5 spiritual apes did not feel the slightest bit of fear. Instead, their bloodline's ferocity was completely aroused. Their eyes shone with an ominous light as they stared fixedly at Xianxia. Squeak, 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 squeak. one of the spiritual apes immediately began to cry out. It used the language of the spiritual apes to communicate with the other 4 spiritual apes. Hearing the cry of this spirit ape, the other 4 spirit apes hesitated for a moment. But soon after, they clenched their teeth. Their bodies swayed slightly and surrounded the spirit ape that spoke. Then, surging energy surged out from their bodies and surged toward the spirit ape that stood in the middle. Jianshan's face changed slightly at the sight of this. The 5 spiritual apes had actually used an extremely unique method to gather the power of 4 of them into the body of the spiritual ape in the middle. As a result, the spiritual ape in the middle did not just possess the combined power of the 5 Class 6 magical beasts. With such great power, just how great was its strength? A strong killing intent flashed in Jianshan's eyes. He couldn't let the 5 spirit apes continue. Once they finished executing this secret technique, they would create a powerful and terrifying opponent. At that time, he would be in big trouble. Just as Jianshan was about to make a move to interrupt the secret technique that the 5 spirit apes were executing, suddenly, an old voice rang out. "Stop! How can you treat your guests like this? Ling Ji, Ling Duo, Ling Jin, Ling Shan, Ling Jia. Why haven't you invited the guests in? Don't neglect them." This old voice was vast and majestic. It was as if it came from the heavens and earth, making it impossible to find the source of the voice. The sudden voice made Jianshan give up on taking the opportunity to attack the 5 spirit apes. His expression was extremely solemn as he scanned the surroundings. Finally, his gaze landed on a mountain peak a few kilometers away. Then, he released his divine sense in an attempt to investigate the situation inside. However, just as Jianshan's divine sense approached the mountain peak, it was blocked by a transparent barrier. His divine sense was unable to penetrate it. Jianshan's face suddenly changed and he immediately wanted to retreat. The people who could cast down barriers were all saint rulers who had comprehended the mysteries of the world. Since a barrier had appeared here, Jianshan immediately understood that the speaker was probably a hermit saint ruler when he thought about how he could not find the source of the voice. Although the origin energy of Jianshan's Azure Sword spirits was very powerful, this kind of attack could only be used against Class 6 magical beasts and Heaven Saint Masters. Once he faced an expert like a saint ruler, Jianshan had no chance of victory. Ever since the old voice rang out, the 5 spirit apes immediately stopped their secret technique. They all stared at Jianshan with gritted teeth. From their vicious expressions, it was as if Jianshan was their greatest enemy. Jianshan floated in the air as his expression became uncertain. He did not know whether he should leave or stay. However, if a saint ruler really wanted to attack him, he probably would not be able to escape no matter how he ran. From the tone of the old voice, it did not seem to be hostile. This made Jianshan secretly let out a sigh of relief. Ling Ji, Ling Duo, Ling Jin, Ling Shan, Ling Jia. Why don't the 5 of you invite the esteemed guest in? Do not neglect him. At this moment, the old voice rang out again. It rang out in the sky, but it was impossible to find the source of the voice. Ji. The 5 spirit apes seemed to be able to understand the human language. They respectfully bowed to the mountain before them before looking at each other. They very unwillingly made an inviting gesture to Jianshan. Jianshan did not say anything. He smiled freely and directly flew toward the mountain a few kilometers away. Behind him, the 5 spirit apes whose golden fur was dyed red followed closely behind. They all gritted their teeth, clearly holding a grudge against Jianshan. Very soon, Jianshan arrived before the mountain. At such a close distance, Jianshan discovered that there was indeed a transparent barrier in front of him. This barrier was very large, enveloping the entire mountain. At this moment, a crack silently appeared in the barrier. It constantly expanded until it formed a door that could allow one person to pass through. "Human, come in. I want to talk to you." The old voice rang out again. However, this time, it did not come from the sky. Instead, it came from the mountain peak opposite of Jianshan. Jianshan hesitated for a moment before decisively flying in. The 5 spirit apes also followed closely behind. However, after entering the barrier, their expressions immediately turned respectful. Jianchen swept his gaze across the mountain peak and discovered that there was an extremely large cave at the center of the mountain peak. On the roof of the cave, there were 3 extremely ancient human words: Ape King's Cave. Jianchen and the 5 spirit apes simultaneously flew into the Ape King's Cave. The interior of the Ape King's Cave was extremely bright. Regardless of whether it was the ground or the walls of the cave, they were all flat and bright like a mirror. The passageway of the cave was very long. Jianchen continued to advance for a distance of 100 meters before his field of vision suddenly widened. He had already arrived at an extremely spacious and huge mountainside. The mountainside was planted with many exotic flowers and plants that emitted a faint fragrance. Just a whiff of it would make one feel relaxed and happy. Their heart was as calm as water. It actually had the effect of dispelling the violent emotions in one's body. Aside from the exotic flowers and plants, the furnishings in the huge mountainside were very simple. There was only a jade table and a jade bed. Just by looking at the color, one could tell that it was priceless. And on top of the jade bed, a white-haired old man was sitting cross-legged. Deep wrinkles had already accumulated on his face. It was almost impossible to see his face. And beside the old man's leg, a snow-white little tiger with a pair of wings was quietly lying there and snoring. Compared to a few days ago, the white tiger's body seemed to have grown a little. Its body that was originally half a meter long had now grown to 2 feet long. As soon as he saw the white tiger, Jianchen's face suddenly revealed a trace of excitement. However, he also understood where this place was, so he could only forcefully suppress the excitement in his heart. He didn't dare to act recklessly. The 5 spirit apes quickly stepped forward and knelt down in front of the old man. Their expressions were incomparably respectful as they spoke in a beast language that Jianchen couldn't understand. The old man sitting cross-legged on the jade bed glanced at the 5 spirit apes and said in an indifferent tone, "You guys are too unreasonable. This human in front of you is our esteemed guest. How can you treat him like this? Hurry up and apologize to our esteemed guest." Ji. Hearing this, the 5 spirit apes immediately cried out in dissatisfaction. It seemed like they were trying to explain something. Not all humans are great enemies. This human in front of you is our esteemed guest. The 5 of you hurry up and apologize. The old man continued to say. Towards the end, his tone became a little strict. The 5 spirit apes all hung their heads dejectedly. Their faces were filled with reluctance as they walked in front of Jianchen and cried out 2 times. At the same time, they bowed slightly and apologized to Jianchen according to the rules of their tribe. Now, Jianchen was certain that the old man in front of him didn't have any enmity towards him. He immediately smiled freely and cupped his hands. "This matter is my fault. If I didn't recklessly come here, I'm afraid that such a misunderstanding wouldn't have happened. Please forgive me for disturbing you in any way. The 5 of you can leave," the old man said to the 5 spirit apes. The 5 spirit apes respectfully bowed to the old man. Then, they looked at Jianchen with some indignation and left without saying a word. After the 5 spirit apes left, the old man sitting cross-legged on the jade bed also stood up. He walked to the jade table and sat down. He said to Jianchen, "Human, please sit." "Thank you, Ape King." Jianchen cupped his hands. Then he walked to the jade table and sat across from the old man. The old man's deep eyes looked up and down at Jianchen. He sighed in admiration. "No wonder Rum Guinness values you as a human. You really are different. Although your hands are covered in blood, I can feel a sense of righteousness from you. Rum Guinness giving her child to you was perhaps a wise choice." Hearing this, Jianchen was shocked. He said, "Senior, you know Rum Guinness?" Chapter 382. Hearing this, Jianchen was a bit surprised. He didn't expect the old man to be an elder of the Gilligan family. However, his good relationship with Rum Guinness and her husband made Jianchen feel relieved. At the very least, he knew that the old man wouldn't tell the king of the Gilligan family that the white tiger was here. This gave the poor white tiger a layer of protection. The old man then said, "Since Rum Guinness entrusted her child to you, she must have told you that her child is a winged tiger as well as the dangers it faces." Jianchen nodded and didn't reply. Human, I admire your courage. Rum Guinness didn't misjudge you. The old man looked at Xianxia with a trace of admiration. Senior Ape King is too kind. This one only came here with a fluke mentality. Xianxia's face didn't turn red as he spoke. The Ape King knew that Xianxia was just being polite, so he chuckled and said, Human, you are very powerful and your abilities are very strange. You are very different from the other humans I've seen. Rum Guinness child shouldn't encounter too much danger if it follows you. However, you must remember that you must not spread the news that Rum Guinness child is a winged tiger. Otherwise, it will bring you and Rum Guinness child a lot of trouble. As for the wings on the winged tiger's back, you don't need to worry. There are all kinds of magical beasts in the world, and many of them have wings. Unless it's a powerful magical beast that has reached the 7th level, they won't be able to sense the unique bloodline power of the winged tiger. Therefore, hiding the winged tiger with you in the human world might be a very good idea. However, you must remember that you must not expose the winged tiger to a 7th level magical beast. Senior Ape King, can't the white tiger follow you? The Cross Mountains are so large that the ruler of the Gilligan clan might not be able to find you. With your abilities, hiding the white tiger shouldn't be too difficult, right? Xianxia asked for help. He had offended the Shi family and the Jetta clan. These two clans were extremely powerful, and even on the entire Tianyuan continent, they could be considered as peak clans. The white tiger would not be safe with him in the future. He only hoped that the white tiger could grow up normally and not suffer too much. It was already pitiful enough. The Yuan King shook his head without any hesitation and firmly said, No, that definitely won't do. You don't understand the situation of the Cross Mountains and the power of the ruler of the Gilligan clan. Although the territory of the spirit apes is only at the border between the Cross Mountains and the Myriad Mountains, which is extremely far away from the Gilligan clan, the winged tiger will not be safe in our territory for long periods of time. Not only will our spirit apes face the threat of extinction because of this. Xianxia became stern. He lowered his head in thought and murmured, If that's the case, I can only take the white tiger with me. The winged tiger will only be safe in your human world. Although the Gilligan clan is powerful, the elders of the clan won't dare to enter your territory. If the winged tiger stays in the human world, it won't be hunted down by the Gilligan clan at the very least, said the Yuan King. Magical beasts that have reached class 7 can take human form. If the ruler of the Gilligan clan takes human form and comes to our world, no one will be able to discover him, right? A sliver of worry appeared on Xianxia's face when he thought of that. The Yuan King chuckled, Don't worry. The experts of your world have an agreement with the Gilligan clan. Without the permission of both parties, no saint ruler can take a single step into the territory of the other party. Otherwise, they will break the agreement and be punished by both parties. Oh, then I don't have to worry. Xianxia's furrowed brows immediately relaxed. This was indeed good news to him. A smile suddenly appeared on the wrinkled face of the Yuan King. Human, you still haven't told me your name. Senior Yuan King, I am Xianxia. Xianxia clasped his hands in a respectful manner. Xianxia. The old Yuan King muttered under his breath, as if memorizing this name in his mind. Then he slowly extended his right hand and took out 2 jade cups and a carefully carved wine bottle from his space ring. Xianxia, this is the 100-grass wine brewed by our spirit ape clan. It's brewed from over 100 heavenly resources in the Cross Mountains. This bottle of 100-grass wine is a treasure that I've collected for 1,000 years. There's only a few dozen kilograms, and I usually don't even drink it. Since you're a friend of Rum Guinness, you're not an outsider, so I'll let you have a taste of the fine wine of our spirit ape clan. With that, the Yuan King opened the bottle and poured out a green liquid. Immediately, a fragrance wafted out and filled the entire mountain, suppressing the fragrance of the exotic flowers and herbs. The old Yuan King pushed a cup full of 100 herbs wine in front of Xianxia and said with a smile, This is a rare treasure that can't even be bought outside. It contains a vast amount of energy, and its effect isn't as simple as just increasing your strength. Its greatest effect is to help you condense your mind. Condense minds? Xianxia was immediately moved. A treasure that could condense minds was exactly what he needed, because it would directly affect his strength. The Yuan king seemed to be very satisfied with Jianquan's surprised expression. He smiled. Are you surprised? Hee, a normal 100-grass wine can only slightly increase saint force, and it's only effective for you humans below the Heaven Saint Master level. However, the 100-grass wine in my hand is a treasure that I've collected for 1,000 years. It's far from what a normal 100-grass wine can compare to. Even if you human saint rulers drink it, it'll still be of great help. Jianquan no longer hesitated. After expressing his thanks, he impatiently drank the 100-grass jade in one gulp. Jianquan only felt a cool feeling rise up in his body. As soon as the 100-grass jade entered his stomach, it immediately turned into energy and stayed in his body. However, because Jianquan's saint weapon had been destroyed, it was equivalent to his dantian being destroyed. Therefore, this energy could not be absorbed at all. After staying in his body for a while, it began to slowly dissipate. At the same time, a strand of green qi quickly rose from Jianquan's dantian and entered his head. Finally, it merged with Jianquan's mind. A wondrous feeling appeared in Jianquan's mind. At this moment, Jianquan felt his soul become unprecedentedly comfortable. Waves of pleasure came from the depths of his soul, as if he had ascended to immortality. Jianquan almost could not help but moan. Jianquan slowly closed his eyes, enjoying the pleasure that came from his soul. At the same time, Jianquan's mind was rapidly condensing. Even the sword spirits in his sea of consciousness benefited greatly, transmitting waves of joyful thoughts. After a while, the pleasure finally faded away. Jianquan slowly opened his eyes. At this moment, he could clearly feel that in this short period of time, his mind had actually become much stronger at an inconceivable rate. This made him extremely excited. The 100-grass wine that the old Yuan king had stored for 1,000 years was truly a good thing. Following this, Jianquan's eyes suddenly became fiery. The 100-grass wine in the old Yuan king's hands was of great help to him. If he drank a few more cups, at this moment, Jianquan's gaze towards the old Yuan king suddenly changed. Noticing the gaze in Jianquan's eyes, the old Yuan king's eyelids twitched. He immediately put away the bottle of 100-grass wine on the table and said with some dissatisfaction, "Don't even think about my 100-grass wine. The 100-grass wine in my hands was stored for 1,000 years to have such an effect. Drinking a little is a little less. I only have this much. If it was just an ordinary 100-grass wine, I would have given it to you." Hearing the old Yuan king's words, Jianquan embarrassedly smiled. His face revealed a rare trace of awkwardness as he said, "This, Senior Ape King, the 100-grass wine in your hands is of great help to me. You see, no." The old Yuan king unhesitatingly waved his hand and said, "I only invited you to drink a cup because of rum Guinness. How can you be so ungrateful?" The old Yuan king treated his 100-grass wine as a treasure. No matter what was said, he would not give Jianquan more. Jianquan hesitated for a moment before taking out a fist-sized metal seal from his space ring and placed it on the table, saying, "Senior Ape King, how about I use this thing to exchange for some 100-grass wine?" Jianquan coveted the 100 herbs brew very much. It would be of great help to him, so in order to obtain more of it, Jianquan was willing to give up the 100 herbs brew. In order to get more, he did not hesitate to take out the most valuable item on his body. "No, I won't exchange." The old Yuan king unhesitatingly opened his mouth. However, when he unintentionally glanced at the item Jianquan placed on the table, his expression suddenly changed. A trace of surprise appeared on his face. "This is, Senior Ape King, I believe you recognize this item and know how precious it is. If I use this item to exchange for some 100-grass jade, you won't lose out, right?" Jianquan's face revealed a trace of a confident smile. The item he took out was the king weapon, the seal of Treasure Mountain. Although a king weapon was precious, Jianquan was unable to use it. Moreover, using the seal of Treasure Mountain required a special secret technique of the Shi family. It was completely unnecessary for him to keep it on him. Moreover, the Shi family had a secret technique that could detect the seal of Treasure Mountain. If this item was placed on Jianquan's body, it would undoubtedly be a ticking time bomb that could provide the Shi family with his location at any time. It would be a pity to throw it away just like that. Rather than that, it was better to exchange it for something that was of great use to him. This is a king weapon. Where did you get it? The ape king's expression suddenly became somewhat serious. I stole it, Xianxia said without hesitation. Chapter 383. Xianxia did not comment on the Yuan king's words. He fearlessly smiled and said, I know. The Yuan king deeply glanced at Xianxia as his expression became somewhat stern. He said, clans with ruler armaments are all very powerful. With you by yourself with the winged tiger by your side, I'm afraid that many unforeseen events will occur. Senior Ape King, as the saying goes, counter soldiers with arms and water with an earth weir. Since the matter has already happened, there's no point in saying this. Although clans with ruler armaments are very powerful, the Tianyuan continent is so large. They may not be able to find me. Xianxia was indifferent and fearless. I hope so. I just don't want Rum Guinness Child to suffer any grievances or harm with you. The Yuan king sighed. After a moment of silence, he took out another jade bottle and passed it to Xianxia. He placed it in front of Xianxia with a pained expression and said, For Rum Guinness Child, I can only reluctantly part with it. Take this 5 kilograms of 100-grass wine. I hope it can increase your strength a little. Only then will you have the ability to protect the winged tiger. Thank you, Senior Ape King. Xianxia was overjoyed. He immediately put the bottle into his space ring, as if he was afraid that the Ape King would go back on his word. Senior Ape King, just take this ruler armament as an exchange for your 100-grass wine. After putting away the 100-grass wine, Xianxia pushed the seal of Treasure Mountain in front of the Ape King. The Ape King indifferently glanced at the seal of Treasure Mountain and said, I have no use for your human ruler armaments, so you should take it. If you can learn how to use a ruler armament, it will be of great help to you. Hearing this, Xianxia slightly hesitated before taking the seal of Treasure Mountain back. The growth of the winged tiger is extremely slow. Only by consuming large amounts of heavenly treasures can it speed up its growth. Over the years, I've collected a few different heavenly treasures. Seeing how I used to be friends with the Rum Guinness couple, I'll give them all to their child. I hope it can help their child grow up quickly. With that, the Ape King waved his hand and the jade table was immediately filled with all sorts of heavenly treasures. There were 1,000-year ginseng, 1,000-year Ganoderma lucidum, 1,000-year knotweed, 1,000-year dragon tongue grass, 1,000-year geocentric blue, 100-year spirit wisdom root, and so on. There were dozens of different kinds of herbs. Among them, there were many heavenly treasures that Xianxia had never seen before. He couldn't even name them. These things were all given to the white tiger by the Ape King, so Xianxia didn't refuse. After thanking the Ape King, he put all the heavenly treasures away. The Ape King spoke again, Stay here for a while. A few days ago, I fed the winged tiger some heavenly treasures. Right now, it's in a deep sleep to digest the effects of the medicine. Looking at the time, it'll wake up soon. Once it wakes up, take it away from here. With that, the Ape King no longer paid any attention to Xianxia. He directly walked to the jade bed and sat down with his legs crossed. He closed his eyes and stopped moving. The belly of the mountain sank into an eerie silence. Xianxia didn't stay idle despite his boredom. He casually walked around the large belly of the mountain, admiring the heavenly treasures planted in the belly of the mountain. Xianxia waited in the belly of the mountain for over 6 hours before the white tiger finally woke up. As soon as it opened its pair of bright, pure eyes, it immediately discovered Xianxia admiring the heavenly treasures not too far away. The white tiger was clearly stunned when it saw Xianxia for the first time. It immediately let out a cheerful whimper and jumped up from the jade bed, quickly running towards Xianxia. Hearing the white tiger's cry, Xianxia's face lit up with joy. Just as he turned his head, he saw a white shadow shooting towards his chest. Xianxia hurriedly stretched out his arms to catch the white tiger. When the white tiger's petite body crashed into Xianxia's arms, the strong impact immediately caused Xianxia to uncontrollably take a step back. Whimper. The white tiger was very happy. It kept whining in Xianxia's arms. Its furry little head rubbed against Xianxia's face, and its little tongue kept licking Jianxin's face. It looked very affectionate. Compared to a few days ago, the white tiger's dependence on Jianxin was even stronger now. Jianxin looked at the white tiger with a smile. He could clearly feel that the white tiger's weight had increased by a lot. In just a few days, its body had also grown a little. Its 4 limbs had grown sharp claws, and even its teeth had grown out. They were abnormally sharp. Jianxin, take the winged tiger and leave this place. It can't stay here for too long. The Ape King's voice suddenly sounded. He didn't know when, but his tightly shut eyes had opened. He was looking at the white tiger in Jianxin's arms with a smile on his face. His eyes were filled with affection. Yes, Senior Ape King, this one will leave now. Goodbye. Jianxin comforted the white tiger as he said to the Ape King. Then he turned around and left. Ooh. The white tiger seemed to understand that it was about to leave this place. Its bright eyes stared at the Ape King with some reluctance. It waved its little paws and said goodbye to the Ape King. Walking out of the Ape King's cave, it was pitch black everywhere. The bright moonlight shone down from the sky, providing a little bit of light to this dark world. Tonight's night sky was very beautiful. The stars were hanging high in the dark sky, like naughty and mischievous children blinking their eyes, twinkling and sparkling. It was very charming. The Ape King didn't come out to send him off. Jianxin carried the white tiger that had calmed down in his arms and directly flew into the air, leaving this mountain peak. When he arrived in front of the barrier outside, the barrier silently opened a door. Jianxin directly exited the barrier and didn't stay there. After determining the direction, he flew in the direction of Longevity Valley. The white tiger seemed to be very curious about the ability to fly. Its little paws tightly held onto one of Jianxin's arms. Its little eyes flickered with a bright and curious light as it constantly scanned the surroundings. In the air, it stayed very quiet in Jianxin's arms. It only kept turning its little head to look down. It was very cute. When Jianxin returned to Longevity Valley, the sky was already bright. The villagers of Longevity Village were all busy with their work. Jianxin didn't directly fly into the village. Instead, he landed at the entrance of the valley and walked towards the village step by step with the white tiger in his arms. Hi, Jianxin, you're finally back. Did you bring me anything tasty? Little Fatty ran out from the village from afar. When he arrived before Jianxin and saw the white tiger in Jianxin's arms, a sliver of surprise immediately appeared in his eyes. He asked curiously, Jianxin, where did you get this magical beast from? It even has a pair of wings on its back. Once it grows up, it'll probably be able to fly into the sky. Jianxin nodded. This is a little beast. I found it in the forest. What do you think? Isn't it cute? Jianxin remembered the old Ape King's warning. He couldn't reveal the white tiger's identity. Jianxin and Little Fatty chatted and laughed as they made their way to the village. Along the way, all the villagers who saw Jianxin warmly greeted him. It was no longer a secret that Jianxin could fly in the air. He had already won the respect of all the villagers by becoming a Heaven Saint Master at such a young age. Just when Jianxin was about to enter the house, Uncle Xiao and Xiaomi both came out with a hoe. Jianxin, what's that in your arms? Little Fatty's father, Xiaomi, noticed the white tiger in Jianxin's arms with a single glance and asked in surprise. Jianxin chuckled, Uncle Xiaomi, this is a little beast I found outside. Little beast? What little beast? There's a difference in grades here. Please don't be a low-class magical beast that you've never used. Xiaomi arrived before Jianxin and studied the white tiger curiously. The white tiger seemed to become very unhappy when it heard that it was a low-class magical beast. It stood in Jianxin's arms and stared at Xiaomi with its chest puffed out. It opened its mouth and revealed its newly grown canines as it clamored at Xiaomi. It seemed like a beast king. Xiaomi gently snorted in surprise at the white tiger's reaction. He then carefully studied the white tiger. When he saw the wings on the white tiger's back, surprise flashed through his eyes once again. He then looked at Uncle Xiao and said, Father, you're very knowledgeable. Take a look at what kind of magical beast this little beast is. It doesn't seem to be of a low grade. Uncle Xiao silently walked up to Jianxin with his hoe. He stared at the white tiger with his deep eyes and studied it. In the end, his gaze landed on the wings on the white tiger's back, and he furrowed his brows. He seemed to be in deep thought. Jianchen looked at Uncle Xiao with a smile. He was not worried about Uncle Xiao recognizing the white tiger's identity, because only Class 7 magical beasts could sense the white tiger's true identity through the aura of their bloodline. It was impossible for humans to see through it. Moreover, only one winged tiger had appeared in the ancient times. Even if he revealed the white tiger's true identity, there would probably be very few people who would know. This was because the first winged tiger had appeared in far too distant a time. It could basically be traced back to Imo Tianyun's era. Seeing how Uncle Xiao remained silent for a long time, Xiaomi asked in surprise, "Father, are you unable to see through the origins of this little beast?" Uncle Xiao ignored Xiaomi. He stared fixedly at the wings on the white tiger's back as he frowned. A while later, Uncle Xiao suddenly trembled. He stared at the white tiger in disbelief as shock filled his face. Chapter 384. Uncle Xiao's face was filled with shock as he stared blankly at the white tiger in Jianchen's arms. His face was filled with disbelief and disbelief. "Father, what's wrong?" Xiaomi looked at the changes in Uncle Xiao's expression in shock. This was the first time he had seen his father lose his composure like this. Uncle Xiao did not pay attention to Xiaomi. His gaze immediately became sharp as he carefully sized up the white tiger in Jianchen's arms. He saw almost every corner of the white tiger's body clearly. Woo-woo. Uncle Xiao's gaze was rather frightening. The white tiger was still too young after all, so it immediately felt uneasy when it was stared at by Uncle Xiao's sharp gaze. Its petite body squirmed uneasily in Jianchen's arms before burying its head deep into Jianchen's arms as if it was afraid. "Uncle Xiao, what are you doing?" Jianchen was both nervous and bewildered. He did not know why Uncle Xiao would suddenly act like this. Could it be that he had really seen through the white tiger's identity? However, the Ape King had clearly told him that it was impossible for humans to see through the winged tiger's identity. Uncle Xiao took in a deep breath as his sharp gaze gradually dissipated. He quickly became as calm and profound as before. Uncle Xiao stared at the white tiger for a while with a complicated expression before turning to Jianchen. He said, "Jianchen, tell me honestly. Did you really pick up this little beast in your arms in the forest?" "Uncle Xiao, do you know the origins of the white tiger?" Jianchen looked at Uncle Xiao in shock. He felt that this was very unbelievable. Uncle Xiao sighed and looked at Little Fatty. He said, "Little Fatty, go to the fields first." "Yes, Grandpa," Little Fatty replied. He looked curiously at the white tiger in Jianchen's arms before heading to the fields with his hoe. After Little Fatty left, Uncle Xiao said to Jianchen and Xiaomi, "The two of you come with me." As he said that, he turned around and walked towards his wooden hut. Xiaomi also seemed to feel that the situation was rather serious. He looked deeply at the white tiger before following Uncle Xiao into the wooden hut. Jianchen dawdled for a moment before following him in. This was the wooden hut that Uncle Xiao lived in alone. It was not large, only around 10 square meters. The furnishings were extremely simple. There was only a wooden bed and a wardrobe as well as some farming tools in the corner. Apart from that, there was nothing else. Just as Jianchen entered the hut, a transparent barrier suddenly appeared, enveloping the entire hut. Seeing the barrier that suddenly appeared, Xiaomi turned pale with fright. He exclaimed, "Father, just what is it that made you so cautious? You actually used a barrier." Jianchen's face also became serious. Now that things had developed to this point, no matter how much he did not believe it, he had no choice but to accept the fact that Uncle Xiao had already realized that the white tiger was a winged tiger. Uncle Xiao did not pay attention to Xiaomi. Instead, he stared at Jianchen sternly and said, "Jian, tell me the truth. Where did you obtain this cub?" "Uncle Xiao, could it be that you've already realized the identity of the white tiger?" Jianchen wanted to hear a definite answer. Uncle Xiao's gaze landed on the white tiger and he said in a deep voice, "If I'm not wrong, it should be the winged tiger that only appeared once in ancient times." Jianchen's face immediately changed. Although he had already guessed this, His heart still beat uncontrollably when Uncle Xiao personally mentioned the identity of the white tiger. Jianchen, it looks like you know about the winged tiger. Uncle Xiao stared at Jianchen sternly and said in a deep voice. That's right. I do know about the winged tiger. There was no need for Jianchen to hide anything now. Afterwards, he told Uncle Xiao everything that had happened between him and Rum Guinness without hiding anything. After hearing Jianchen's words, Uncle Xiao quieted down for a while. He frowned slightly and pondered. Jianchen did not say anything either. He did not want to disturb Uncle Xiao's thoughts. On the other hand, Xiaomi stood to one side as he stared at the white tiger that was as obedient as a child in Jianchen's arms. He had never dared to imagine that the white tiger actually possessed such a great background. He found it hard to believe. It was just too unbelievable. After quite a while, Uncle Xiao let out a long sigh and said, "The appearance of the winged tiger is a blessing for the magical beasts without a doubt. If it matures successfully, it will definitely reach the level of the winged tiger from ancient times. However, the strength of the magical beasts will increase drastically if that happens, and they will pose a serious threat to the humans of the Tianyuan continent. Jianchen, the winged tiger in your arms that has not matured yet is very likely to bring disaster to the humans of the Tianyuan continent in the future." Jianchen paled in fright when he heard that. Judging from Uncle Xiao's words, he did not plan on eliminating the white tiger before it matured to prevent any future problems. "It won't, Uncle Xiao. The white tiger is very obedient, and with its current situation, it'll probably have to live among us humans in the future. It'll naturally develop feelings for us humans after a long time, so it definitely won't do something like that. At the same time, its father has been killed by the ruler of the Gilligan clan, and its mother has been heavily injured. Once the white tiger matures, it'll only hate the Gilligan clan and won't attack us humans." Jianchen explained in a hurry. If Uncle Xiao wanted the white tiger to die, he would not be able to save the white tiger even if he used everything he had. Uncle Xiao nodded imperceptibly and said, "Yeah, what you said makes a lot of sense. Even if the winged tiger won't do anything to harm us humans in the future, it'll still be a problem if it follows you around." Uncle Xiao did not give Jianchen time to speak and continued, "This matter is definitely not as simple as you think it is. The ruler of the Gilligan clan has no reason to kill the winged tiger because the winged tiger's appearance poses no threat to him at all. He might even use this opportunity to reach new heights." Jianchen was at a loss when he heard Uncle Xiao's words. He did not know what to say. Uncle Xiao let out a long sigh and said, "Jianchen, the winged tiger's life is in danger at any time. You have to make it grow up as quickly as possible. Only with enough strength can you face everything in the future." "Uncle Xiao, is there some sort of secret behind this?" Jianchen was filled with doubt. Uncle Xiao did not answer him. He said, "Jianchen, you can leave. Remember, make the winged tiger grow up as quickly as possible." With that, a crack silently appeared in the barrier. Jianchen glanced at Uncle Xiao and hesitated. In the end, he gently sighed and left with mixed feelings. His heart was rather heavy. Uncle Xiao wants the white tiger to grow as quickly as possible. Looks like there's some sort of secret behind this that I don't know about. I wonder if Rum Guinness purposefully didn't tell me or if even she doesn't know about it, Jianchen thought. After Jianchen left, Uncle Xiao passed a blood-red medallion to Xiaomi. He said with a deep voice, "Xiaomi, go to the Blood Sword sect with this medallion immediately. Have all the members of the intelligence agency of the Blood Sword sect move out and observe the situation overseas closely. At the same time, pay attention to the entire Tianyuan continent. Report to me immediately as soon as an unknown expert appears." "Father, didn't you say that you would never use the Blood Sword sect in the future? Why is it this time?" Xiaomi's face was filled with shock. "This matter is extremely important, so don't ask any more questions. Go to the Blood Sword sect with my medallion immediately." Uncle Xiao was stern and dignified. Right now, he did not seem like a farmer at all. Instead, he seemed like a great general who could command an entire army. "Yes, I'll go immediately." Xiaomi did not dare to ask any more questions. He took the medallion and left. Uncle Xiao let out a long sigh after Xiaomi left. He sat down beside the bed and murmured to himself, They're just far too bold to try and kill the winged tiger. Once the winged tiger truly matures, it'll be their end. Looks like they might infiltrate the Tianyuan continent to kill the winged tiger soon. Whatever, this has nothing to do with me. If they really do come, the protector clans will naturally stop them. Jianshan carried the white tiger into his wooden hut after leaving Uncle Xiu's room. He then placed the white tiger on the bed and gently stroked its furry head. The white tiger closed its eyes comfortably as if it enjoyed Jianshan's touch very much. Right now, it was extremely reliant on Jianshan. Jianshan stared at the obedient white tiger for a while before taking out the 1,000-year ginseng the Ape King had given him from his space ring. He placed it before the white tiger and gently said, "White tiger, eat this. It'll allow you to grow faster." The white tiger sniffed and seemed to smell a fragrance. It immediately opened its eyes and produced a whimper that sounded like it was cheering. It immediately began to wolf down the ginseng as if it liked eating them very much. After eating the 1,000-year ginseng, the white tiger let out a satisfied burp. It then closed its eyes and fell asleep on the bed. Jianshan knew that the white tiger was absorbing the spiritual energy within the heavenly resources, so he didn't disturb it. He then sat cross-legged on the bed and took out the 100 herbs wine the Ape King had given him. He gulped it down in large mouthfuls. The 1,000-year 100 herbs wine's greatest effect was to help people condense their minds. Jianshan gulped down half a liter of it in one go. He then closed his eyes with a satisfied expression and began to enjoy the pleasure that originated from his soul. As a green qi rose from his dantian and entered Jianshan's mind immediately began to rapidly strengthen. Even the sword spirits benefited greatly. Chapter 385. A moment later, when Jianshan recovered from that comfortable state, his mind had become stronger again. Then, Jianshan immediately took out the jade bottle containing the 100 herbs wine and began to gulp it down. This time, Jianshan gulped down a few kilograms of wine. When there was only half of the 100 herbs wine left in the jade bottle, he stopped and continued to enjoy the pleasure of the rapid condensation of his mind. About 2 hours later, the spirit qi in the 100 herbs wine was completely absorbed by Jianshan. At this time, Jianshan's mind had grown at an unbelievable speed by 30%. When he spread out his consciousness, the area it covered had also expanded from 10 kilometers to 13 kilometers. Jianshan was in an extremely good mood. The increase in his mind would directly affect his overall strength. In less than a day, his strength had taken such a big step forward. This was a scene that he would never have dared to imagine in the past. This 100 herbs wine is really good stuff. Jianshan constantly praised in his heart. Then, he eagerly continued to gulp down the 100 herbs wine. Soon, the 10 kilograms of 100 herbs wine that the old Ape King had given to Jianshan was only left with about 1 kilogram. Jianshan carefully stored the remaining 1 kilogram of 100 herbs wine and closed his eyes to feel the rapid condensation of his mind and the continuous strengthening of his consciousness. The spirit qi in the 100 herbs wine revolved in Jianshan's dantian for a while before quickly dissipating. However, the green qi in the 100 herbs wine rose from his abdomen and entered Jianshan's head, finally entering Jianshan's consciousness. In Jianshan's consciousness, the sword spirits wrapped around a multicolored stone and slowly rotated in excitement. The purple and green lights trembled as if they were very happy. As the green qi in the 100 herbs wine continuously entered Jianshan's consciousness, the sword spirits that had already fused with Jianshan's soul also received great benefits. Their weak souls were quickly condensing, and even the purple and green lights seemed to become a bit more intense. After an unknown amount of time, the green qi in the 100 herbs wine had been completely absorbed by Jianshan, and Jianshan also woke up from the comfortable feeling of his soul being refined. Immediately, Jianshan felt that his consciousness had become unprecedentedly powerful. Although his eyes were closed and he didn't intentionally release his consciousness, he could still clearly sense the slightest movement within 100 meters. At that moment, Jianshan felt as if his soul had become one with the heavens and earth. He didn't need to make any special arrangements to enter a state where his soul was one with the heavens and earth. He could clearly sense everything within 100 meters of him. It was as if everything within 100 meters was under his control, as if it was his domain. Xianxia released his consciousness with all his strength, and in the blink of an eye, it enveloped the small Longevity Valley. The villagers working in the fields immediately appeared in Xianxia's mind like a picture. Although they were separated by several kilometers, Xianxia could see their every movement, including the slightest of movements. These villagers had grown up in Longevity Valley and had received some cultivation methods from Xiaomi, so almost all of them were cultivators. However, the strongest was only a great saint master, while the rest were all saints and great saints. There were even a few lazy people who didn't like to cultivate and hadn't even condensed a saint weapon within their bodies. Afterwards, when Jianxin's consciousness swept past Uncle Xiao who was plowing the fields, he immediately felt that Uncle Xiao was not a person, but a world. His every movement seemed to contain the power of the world, becoming one with the world. Every movement he made seemed to contain the mysteries of the world. Jianxin's consciousness only reached its limit after enveloping a radius of 15 kilometers. After drinking close to 9 kilograms of the 100-herb wine, Jianxin's consciousness had grown by half. Even his mind had grown by a lot. This was indeed something worth celebrating to him. Master, master! Suddenly, a voice rang out in the depths of Jianxin's head. The sudden voice stunned Jianxin. Afterwards, when he sensed the source of the voice, his face immediately became extremely interesting. His face was filled with shock and disbelief. Master, I can finally communicate with you. At this moment, the voice once again rang out in Jianxin's head. The voice was filled with joy. You're the Azure Sword Spirit? Jianxin's face was filled with amazement as he asked with a stutter. Master, I'm Xing. You can call me Xiao Zi. The one who spoke was the Ziying Sword Spirit. His voice was male, and it was not hard to tell that he was a young man from his voice. Master, I'm Qing Suo. You can call me Qing Suo. At this moment, another soft and pleasant voice rang out in Jianxin's head. The voice was as pleasant as the chirping of a lark. At this moment, Jianxin's consciousness involuntarily entered the space of consciousness. At this moment, in the chaotic space of consciousness, the azure sword spirits that were revolving around the multicolored stone had already disappeared. In their place, there were two strangers. They were around 20 years old. The man was handsome and the woman was beautiful. They seemed like a pair of golden boy and jade girl. Among them, the man had a head of long purple hair that cascaded down naturally. He had a natural aura. His body was wrapped in a purple classical robe, and his eyes were also a strange purple color. The woman wore a long green dress. She had a head of long green hair. Her beauty was unparalleled in the world. It was suffocating. Her eyes were also a strange green. Jianxin was tongue-tied as he stared at the pair of golden boy and jade girl that had appeared in his space of consciousness. He stuttered, You two are the azure sword spirits? Yes, master. I'm Ziying. She's Qing Suo. The young man in the purple robe said. He had a faint smile on his face. Jianxin was speechless. He already knew about the azure sword spirits, but what he found hard to believe was that the azure sword spirits had actually turned into human figures in his space of consciousness. After a while, Jianxin took a deep breath and slowly calmed himself down. He stared at the pair of golden boy and jade girl with a complicated and amazed gaze. He said, I never thought that we would meet in such a way. Have you recovered your strength? Ziying's expression was gloomy. He gently shook his head and said, Master, we're still very weak right now. It's only because you drank the 100 herbs wine that Ziying and Qing Suo recovered some of our strength. That's why we're able to transform and speak. You should just call me Jianxin. There's no need to call me master. Besides, I'm not your master. We can treat each other as friends. Jianxin bitterly smiled. Master, when we first entered your body, we already recognized you as our master. Now, you're Ziying and Qing Suo's master. The one who spoke was Qing Suo. His voice was very pleasant to the ear. Qing Suo's words brought back Jianxin's memories. Jianxin immediately thought of how he was supposed to be dead, but when he woke up, he unexpectedly found himself in this foreign world. He immediately asked, "Oh right, I remember that I was already dead. Was it because of you too that I was able to come to this world?" Qing Sua and Xing looked at each other. After a moment of silence, Xing finally said, "Master, it was indeed Xing and Qing Sua who brought you to this planet. Because the planet you came from was heavily damaged, the energy of the world was constantly flowing away. If you continued to stay there, you wouldn't be able to make much progress. You probably wouldn't be able to reach the level of a Heaven Saint Master in this world even if you spent your entire life there. As a result, Xing and Qing Sua sent you away. However, when they entered the spatial crack, Xing and Qing Sua were heavily injured, so they didn't have enough strength to send you to that place. In the end, they could only randomly send you to a planet that was much stronger than your original world. So it really was because of you too," Jianshan murmured. In reality, he had already guessed this after learning about the existence of the sword spirits. "Master, do you blame us, Qing Sua and Xing?" Qing Sua looked at Jianshan timidly and asked softly. Jianshan smiled freely and said, "If it weren't for you too, I wouldn't have been able to see such a wondrous world, nor would I possess such great strength. You've allowed me to come to an even higher, more wondrous world. Speaking of which, I can't even thank you enough. How could I blame you?" Qing Sua immediately let out a sigh of relief after hearing Jianshan's words. Jianshan continued, "Oh right, how can I help you recover to your peak condition as quickly as possible?" "Master, it's impossible for us to recover to our peak condition in this world. The yuan qi of the world here is far too weak. It can only help us recover a few % of our strength at most," Xing said. Although Jianshan did not understand some of what Xing said, Jianshan was most concerned about how to help the sword spirits recover, so he did not pay attention to these details. He continued, "Then how can I help you recover your strength as quickly as possible?" Xing pointed at the 5-colored stone floating in the space of consciousness and said, "Master, this 5-colored immortal crystal is the only thing that can help us recover some of our strength. Xing and Qing Sua have been absorbing the immortal qi within the immortal crystal these days." "5-colored immortal crystal? What's that?" Jianshan asked in confusion. "Master, the 5-colored immortal crystal is an energy crystal condensed from immortal qi. It has been transformed over millions of years. It's not something from this world. It's already very unbelievable that we could find one here. Over millions of years." Jianshan gasped in shock. Chapter 386. Now that the sword spirits could speak in human form, it was much easier for Jianshan to communicate with them. It was no longer as difficult as before, where it took him so much effort to express himself. Jianshan asked many questions that he did not understand and answered most of his questions. At the very least, Jianshan knew that the reason why he could reincarnate here was all because of the sword spirits. "Oh right, Xing Qing Sua, is there any way for me to cultivate Saint Force?" Jianshan suddenly asked. Without Saint Force, he would not be able to use the illusory flash or his famed swift sword style. He was very unwilling to accept this. Xing and Qing Sua looked at each other and hesitated. After a moment of silence, Xing said in the end, "Master, you can use a special method to cultivate the Saint Force of this world. However, the Saint Force of this world is far too weak." "Too weak?" Jianshan was stunned. Xing nodded, "Yes, Master. The Saint Force of this world is far too weak. Xing does not recommend that you cultivate Saint Force again." Xing paused before continuing before Jianshan could say anything. "Master, Xing and Qing Sua can help you cultivate chaotic force if we work together." "Cultivate chaotic force? Is this chaotic force very powerful?" Jianshan asked in doubt. Xing nodded, "Yes, Master. Chaotic force is the most powerful energy." "Then how do I cultivate chaotic force?" Jianshan was rather interested. He would not let go of any opportunity to become stronger. "Master, Xing and Qing Sua were born from chaotic force. Our yin and yang qi are also formed from chaotic force. As long as Xing and Qing Sua work together, we can refine any energy in the world into chaotic force," Xing said proudly. Being able to refine chaotic force seemed to be a very impressive ability. Xianxia said at this moment, "Master, refining chaotic force requires an extremely large amount of energy of the world. If you just absorb the energy of the world, you probably won't be able to refine a single strand of chaotic force even after 10 years. Master, the two ruler armaments in your hands contain quite a lot of energy. Xing and Xianxia can refine the energy in them into chaotic force." Xianxia beamed with joy when he heard that. He could not use the two ruler armaments at all, so he could not use their full power. They were basically two pieces of trash. If he kept them on him, he was worried that the people of the Shi family would use a special secret technique to find them. He wanted to throw them away, but that would be too much of a pity. He had no idea how to deal with them. Now that the sword spirits could refine chaotic force from the ruler armaments, not only would it solve one of his problems, but it would also help him increase his strength. Obviously, he was extremely willing. "All right, I'll give the two ruler armaments to you. When can you refine the energy in them into chaotic force?" Xianxia was rather impatient. Xing and Xianxia looked at each other and smiled when they saw the impatience on Xianxia's face. Xing said, "Master, we can refine chaotic force for you at any time. However, the energy of this world is just too weak. Refining a single strand of chaotic force will consume a vast amount of energy, so Master's cultivation in the future will probably be even more difficult." "It's fine. I'll just go find a few more ruler armaments when I'm strong enough in the future." Xianxia waved his hand and said without a care, "If that's the case, Master, take out the two ruler armaments. Xing and Xianxia will refine chaotic force for you right now." Xianxia said. Xianxia left the space of consciousness and immediately took out the two ruler armaments from his space ring. He asked, "Xing, Xianxia, what should I do now?" As soon as he said that, Xianxia felt the space of his consciousness suddenly shake. Afterward, Xing and Xianxia suddenly disappeared. When they reappeared, they had already left the space of consciousness and were sitting cross-legged above Xianxia's head. Right now, the two of them looked like two faint, glowing figures. They seemed like condensed smoke, which was not real. However, their facial features were extremely clear. Xing extended his hand and the seal of Treasure Mountain in Xianxia's hand was immediately drawn by a mysterious force. It flew out of Xianxia's hand and hovered above his head. It just happened to stop between Xing and Xianxia. Xing and Xianxia closed their eyes at the same time. They slowly extended their hands and a faint purple and azure light radiated from their palms, enveloping the seal of Treasure Mountain. It slowly began to spin in the form of a taiji diagram. 2 hours later, the seal of Treasure Mountain had been completely refined. It turned into a powerful pulse of pure energy that hovered between Xing and Xianxia's palms. Xing and Xianxia did not stop because of this. Instead, they continued to use their origin energy to refine the seal of Treasure Mountain. After another hour, the energy of the seal of Treasure Mountain had been refined into a faint, gray gas. It was like a wisp of smoke. It was extremely faint, but it gave off an indescribable presence. Xing and Xianxia both extended their hands and the gray gas immediately entered Xianxia's body. In the end, it settled down in Xianxia's dantian. "Master, quickly circulate the Azulite Sword Law and completely refine this strand of chaotic force into your own," Xing and Xianxia said together sternly. Xianxia did not dare to tarry and immediately did as he was told. The refinement took 4 whole hours for Xianxia. After 4 hours, Xianxia finally refined the strand of chaotic force into his own. However, when he saw the wisp of energy in his dantian, he could not help but ask out of curiosity, "Xing, Xianxia, is this chaotic force?" "Yes, Master." "This is chaotic force, but it's only in its most basic form," Xing said. Xianxia became confused when he heard that, most basic form of chaotic force? What does that mean? Xing became rather awkward. He wanted to say something, but he was too embarrassed to open his mouth. Xianxia smiled in a rather embarrassed manner. "Master, this is only the weakest form of chaotic force. It's not even a 10,000th of true chaotic force because there's just too little energy in the ruler armament. It's not enough to refine true chaotic force. Jianchen came to a realization. However, this also allowed him to gain a basic understanding of chaotic force. A ruler armament was the crystallization of all the energy of a ninth heavenly layer saint ruler. He had never thought that such a tremendous amount of energy could only be refined into a sliver of chaotic force. This was more than enough to demonstrate just how terrifying and powerful chaotic force was. Master, none of the cultivation methods on this continent are suitable for chaotic force. You can only use the Azulite sword law in the future. It's a peak cultivation method created by a great master in the past when he comprehended the ways of the world. The method recorded inside can refine any energy in the world, including chaotic force, Xing explained. Cultivation methods only required a special method to refine the energy absorbed and turn it into one's own energy. The Azulite sword law was indeed an extremely profound cultivation method. It was all-encompassing, allowing one to refine whatever energy one absorbed. It could even refine chaotic force. Jianchen nodded slightly. He sighed emotionally inside. He had never thought that the Azulite sword law would have such a great background. Master, but... Xing spoke again. She wanted to say something, but she hesitated. She was also hesitant. She did not know whether she should tell Jianchen or not. But what? Jianchen immediately asked. Qing Suo glared at Ying. His eyes were filled with reproach. After hesitating slightly, he said gently, Master, but the Azulite sword law is split into 3 volumes. You only have the first volume right now. You don't have the other 2 volumes. What? Jianchen was shocked. Disbelief filled his face. Then how can I obtain the other 2 volumes? Xing and Qing Suo looked at each other. After hesitating slightly, Qing Suo said, Master, the first volume is actually enough for you to cultivate chaotic force. The other 2 volumes are still too far away for you right now. Xing added, That's right. Master, you don't need the other 2 volumes right now. Just the first volume is enough. Once you have that kind of strength in the future, you can go and find the other 2 volumes yourself. Moreover, chaotic force is far too brutal. If you want to truly become proficient in using chaotic force, you need to refine the chaotic body. Only the chaotic body can endure the power of chaotic force. Otherwise, it will cause very great damage to your body once you use chaotic force. What? I need to refine the chaotic body to use chaotic force? How am I supposed to refine the chaotic body then? Jianchen immediately felt a headache. He had never thought that this matter would be so troublesome. Master, the method to refine the chaotic body is the body refinement section of the Azulite sword law, said Xing. Jianchen's heart immediately sank when he heard that. He cried out, Doesn't that require a large amount of chaotic force? It does require a large amount of chaotic force, but you can take it slow, Master. Xing said carefully. He could already imagine what Jianchen's expression would be when he learnt about this. Jianchen almost fainted when he heard that, but he did not lose his composure. He sighed at the sky and murmured to himself in disappointment, I knew there was no free lunch in the world. I never thought that chaotic force would be so troublesome. A ruler armament can only refine a sliver of chaotic force, so refining the chaotic body will definitely require tremendous amounts of chaotic force. Heavens, where am I supposed to find so much energy? Jianchen did not know whether he should be happy or worried right now. Although he had obtained a method that could make him extremely powerful, the path ahead was just too difficult. Qing Suo showed a sliver of pity when he saw how Jianchen was. He comforted him, Master, you don't need to be discouraged. There's still a lot of time ahead. Although the path ahead is rather difficult, there will be a day when you can truly refine chaotic force and the chaotic body. Jianchen calmed down very soon. He knew that he had to put in a lot of effort to obtain great rewards because there was no free lunch in the world. There was no free lunch in the world, and there was no free lunch. He had to pay a corresponding price if he wanted great strength. Chapter 387. Over 4 hours later, Xing and Qing Suo refined Jianchen's second ruler armament as well, allowing him to obtain another strand of incomplete chaotic force in his dantian. Two strands of chaotic force that were as thin as mist revolved around Jianxin's dantian, but Jianxin was unable to sense the power of the chaotic force at all. Immediately, he was unable to sense any pulses of energy. He felt like they were useless gas. However, Jianxin did not dare to underestimate them at all because he knew that the two strands of chaotic force had been refined from two ruler armaments. Perhaps the power of chaotic force had exceeded Jianxin's understanding, so it could not be used as a regular form of energy. Xing and Qing Suo returned to Jianxin's consciousness to rest after refining the two ruler armaments into chaotic force. Only Jianxin sat on his bed and studied the chaotic force in his body. Chaotic force is just far too powerful. I need the chaotic body if I want to use it. Without a powerful body, it's impossible for a regular body to support the circulation of chaotic force. In other words, I can't use chaotic force at all, Jianxin frowned and thought. If that's the case, I might as well use a strand of chaotic force to refine my body. I'll make my body stronger first. Although a strand of chaotic force won't be enough for me to reach the chaotic body, it can strengthen my body by quite a lot at the very least, Jianxin thought and made up his mind very soon. As soon as he thought of that, Jianxin immediately controlled a strand of chaotic force to circulate through his body. Fortunately, he had been cultivating the body refinement section of the Azulate Sword Law for quite some time now, so he had accumulated quite a lot of experience. Although the strand of chaotic force was extremely small, it was powerful. Jianxin controlled the strand of chaotic force to circulate through his body. At that moment, Jianxin finally sensed the power of chaotic force. Before the strand of chaotic force, his body was as fragile as a piece of tofu. Wherever the chaotic force passed by, Jianxin's body would immediately be reduced to a horrible sight. His meridians would rupture, his organs would shatter, and even his flesh would be reduced to mush. Even though it was incomplete chaotic force, it was still not something Jianxin could endure with his current body. This was the first time Jianxin had suffered so much pain from refining his body ever since he began cultivating the body refinement section of the Azulate Sword Law. Jianxin constantly trembled as he sat on the bed. His face had become pale long ago as large beads of sweat dripped down his forehead. His handsome face had become completely twisted from the pain as his facial muscles constantly twitched. Finally, a painful groan emerged from Jianxin's throat uncontrollably. At that moment, the pain Jianxin suffered was thousands of times greater than anything he had ever suffered in the past. The unbearable pain ravaged Jianxin's nerves and tortured Jianxin's mind. Even with the powerful senses of his soul, there were several times where he almost fainted from the pain. Ah, Master, how can you directly use chaotic force to refine your body? Your body is just too weak right now. This will cause you a lot of pain. Master, you have to endure it. Qing Suo's worried voice suddenly rang out in Jianxin's head. Master, you have to endure it. Although the chaotic force will destroy your body, it will also modify it. As long as you go through this, it'll be much easier in the future, Xing encouraged Jianxin. Jianxin clenched his teeth. The intense pain had even robbed him of the ability to speak. At that moment, he could not even utter a single word. Like a wisp of smoke, the chaotic force slowly moved through Jianxin's body. It was like an explosive. Wherever it passed by, Jianxin's body would be reduced to mush. Blood leaked out from his pores, dyeing Jianxin's clothes red. Very soon, the chaotic force moved through every inch of Jianxin's body. By now, a third of its power had been depleted. Jianxin let out a sigh of relief. Just when he wanted to stop and use Radiant Saint Force to heal his wounds, Xing's voice rang out in his head, Master, don't stop. Jianxin gritted his teeth and immediately gave up on the idea of resting. He endured the pain and continued to circulate the chaotic force through his body. Afterwards, Jianxin's pain had decreased by a lot. After circulating through his body 3 times, the chaotic force finally dispersed after exhausting all of its power. Jianxin seemed to have lost all of his power as well. He was like a pile of mush, lying on the bed powerlessly as he gasped for breath. Master, you've successfully taken the first step. After experiencing this pain, It'll be much easier for you to refine your body with chaotic force in the future. Of course, the difference in strength between the chaotic force and your body can't be too great. Qing Sua's joyful voice rang out in Jianxin's head. Jianxin was already powerless to reply. He lay on the bed as he gasped for breath. As soon as he thought about the pain he had endured earlier, he shivered inside. The pain was intolerable. After resting for a while, Jianxin finally recovered some of his strength. He immediately controlled the radiant saint force in the surroundings to heal himself. Jianxin's mind had become extremely powerful now, so the radiant saint force he could control was much more powerful as well. The entire wooden hut was filled with a dense layer of radiant saint force. Fortunately, it was daytime, so the radiant saint force was not very obvious. Coupled with the special characteristics of radiant saint force, no one noticed it at all. This time, Jianxin only spent 2 hours to make a full recovery. It was many times more efficient than before. Jianxin sat up on the bed and carefully sensed his body. This time, he could only sense that his body had become stronger. He had no idea just how much stronger it had become. Jianxin took off his blood-soaked clothes and took out a towel to wipe the blood off his body. Afterward, he took out a new set of white robes from his space ring and left the wooden hut after putting them on. It was already afternoon. Jianxin expanded the senses of his soul and found Little Fatty, who was planting vegetables in the fields very soon. He immediately flew over. As Jianxin was facing Little Fatty discovered him as soon as he approached. Little Fatty immediately stopped what he was doing and looked at Jianxin enviously. He said, "Jianxin, isn't the feeling of flying in the sky wonderful?" Jianxin smiled and said, "Little Fatty, you have a very powerful father and grandfather. I believe you'll be able to reach the level of a Heaven Saint Master very soon." "It's still early. I heard my father say that he only reached the level of a Heaven Saint Master when he was 56 years old. I'm only 21 years old right now. I still have to wait for another 20 or 30 years. Little Fatty said with a bit of sadness. He was only a low-level Great Saint Master right now and had only broken through a month ago. However, being able to reach the level of a Great Saint Master at the age of 21 was already considered a genius on the Tianyuan continent. Most importantly, Little Fatty's strength was obtained through his own hard work. He did not use any heavenly resources. Jianxin patted Little Fatty's shoulder and comforted him. "Little Fatty, don't be discouraged. You're already doing very well. In the outside world, the number of people who can reach the level of a Great Saint Master at your age can be counted on one hand." Once the outside world was mentioned, Little Fatty immediately became spirited. He stared at Jianxin with a pair of shining eyes and asked, "Really? Jianxin, then is my current strength very powerful in the outside world?" "This, Little Fatty, let's talk about this later. Right now, I have something I need your help with." Jianxin hurriedly changed the topic. "What is it?" "Jianxin, just say it." "I, Little Fatty, will definitely help you." Little Fatty immediately rolled up his sleeves and said solemnly. Jianxin took a few steps back and said with a serious face, "Little Fatty, use your saint weapon to attack me." "What? Attack you?" Little Fatty was stunned. He thought he had misheard. "Yes, Little Fatty. Attack me as much as you want. Don't worry, you won't be able to do much damage to me," Jianxin said with a serious face. Little Fatty hesitated for a moment, but when he thought about how Jianxin was already a Heaven Saint Master, he relaxed. He nodded and agreed, "All right then, but you can't attack me. I'm not your opponent." As he said that, surging saint force surged out of Little Fatty's hand, forming a pitch-black machete in the end. A gleam of light flashed through Jianxin's eyes. He looked at Little Fatty with a bit of surprise. "Little Fatty, is your saint force of the darkness attribute?" Little Fatty nodded and said, "Yes. My father said that my saint force is of the extremely rare darkness attribute. It's the same as my grandfather's." "Uncle Xiao also has darkness attribute saint force?" Jianxin's heart skipped a beat. However, before he could think about it, Little Fatty's voice rang out, "Jianxin, be careful. I'm going to attack." As soon as he said that, Little Fatty's machete slashed towards Jianshan with a strange darkness attribute Saint Force. Because Little Fatty mistakenly believed that Jianshan wanted to test his abilities, he did not hold back at all. He used his full strength. With a flash of black light, Little Fatty's machete had already cut through the air, viciously chopping down on Jianshan's shoulder. The powerful Saint Force ripples directly tore Jianshan's robes to shreds, revealing Jianshan's fair and tender body. Seeing how Jianshan did not dodge at all, taking on his attack with his own body, Little Fatty's expression immediately changed. He cried out, "Jianshan, why aren't you dodging?" However, in the next moment, Little Fatty's eyes widened as disbelief filled his face. This was because Jianshan did not take any defensive measures and had taken his full strength attack. He was not injured at all, and there was only a clear mark on his shoulder. How is this possible? Am I seeing things? Little Fatty stared dumbfoundedly at the unscathed Jianshan. His face was filled with disbelief. His full strength attack had landed on Jianshan, but it did not even leave a scratch on his skin. Haha. Looking at his shoulder that was not injured at all, Jianshan laughed out loud. His joy had reached a point where he could not be any more joyful. The chaotic body really was powerful. He had only used a sliver of chaotic force to refine his body, and it was already so tough. If he could continue refining his body, he was certain that even Earth Saint Masters or even Heaven Saint Masters would not be able to harm him in the future. Chapter 388. Jianshan, why is your body so tough? Don't tell me it's made of iron? Little Fatty stared at the mark on Jianshan's shoulder in shock and asked in shock. Jianshan took out a new set of clothes from his interspatial ring and said with a smile, "It's not made of iron, but it's just a little stronger than a normal person." Little Fatty looked at Jianshan with a strange gaze and said, "It's not just a little stronger, it's perverted." Jianshan laughed and did not continue on this topic with Little Fatty. Looking at the unfinished vegetable sprouts in the field, he asked, "Little Fatty, do you need my help?" "Yes, of course. My father and grandfather went to the cornfield. Now, I'm the only one planting the vegetables here. You came at the right time. With one more person working, we can finish planting the vegetables earlier." Little Fatty did not stand on ceremony with Jianshan at all. He grabbed the vegetable sprouts in the field and handed them to Jianshan, saying, "I'll plant here, you plant there. With the two of us working together, we can finish planting the vegetables before dinner." Jianshan received the vegetables from Little Fatty and said, "Little Fatty, I may have to leave this place soon." Hearing that, Little Fatty's hands trembled slightly. Then, he continued to plant the vegetables silently. After a while, he finally said with some sadness, "I know that I can't keep you here. You'll have to go to the outside world sooner or later." Jianshan sighed and said, "Little Fatty, I'll talk to your grandfather tonight and get him to agree to let you go to the outside world. It's not a good idea for you to stay here for the rest of your life. This place is just too small. Plus, with your talent, it's too much of a waste for you to spend the rest of your life here." "Jianshan, what about the outside world? What's the outside world like?" Little Fatty stared fixedly at Jianshan. His eyes were filled with yearning. He had grown up in Longevity Village and had rarely left Longevity Valley. He had only heard bits and pieces about the outside world from his father, but he had never seen it before. He did not even know how big the outside world was. The outside world is very big, very big. There are many people and many interesting things. At the same time, it is also very cruel and very complicated. Little Fatty, when you really go to the outside world in the future, you will naturally understand." Jianshan sighed. "But my grandpa will definitely not allow me to go out." Speaking of this, Little Fatty's expression turned gloomy. "I'll talk to your grandfather tonight and try to convince him." Apart from persuading Little Fatty's grandfather, Jianshan had no other choice. Uncle Xiu's cultivation was unfathomable, and he was not willing to offend him. Very soon, the evening arrived. The setting sun was gradually setting in the west, leaving behind a brilliant sunset glow that illuminated the entire sky. In the tranquil Longevity Village, smoke rose in spirals from the chimneys of every household, drifting in the sky. After working for an entire afternoon, Xianxia and little Fatty walked back from the fields. After the two of them separated, Xianxia immediately went to his room to check on the white tiger's condition. The white tiger was still in a deep sleep. It had not completely digested the heavenly treasures it ate during the day. Seeing that the white tiger was safe and sound, Xianxia also felt relieved and left. Then he gathered with little Fatty and his family to eat dinner. However, there was an empty seat at the dinner table tonight. Looking at the empty seat, little Fatty asked with a puzzled expression, "Grandpa, why isn't Father here?" "Little Fatty, your father has something to do, so he went out. Don't worry about him." Well, Uncle Xiao had a kind smile on his face, and his gaze towards little Fatty was full of love. Little Fatty replied in a low voice, and his expression immediately became gloomy. He knew that his father probably went to the outside world again. The outside world was something that little Fatty had yearned for since a few years ago. Xianxia's gaze flickered as he looked at Uncle Xiao. After hesitating for a while, he finally opened his mouth and said, "Uncle Xiao, have you never thought of letting little Fatty go out to gain experience?" As he said that, Xianxia's eyes were fixed on Uncle Xiao's expression. As expected, Uncle Xiao's expression changed. However, before he could say anything, Xianxia continued, "Uncle Xiao, it's not good for little Fatty to continue living in this mountain village. At most, he'll be able to live an ordinary life and lose a lot of the pleasures of life. Moreover, he won't be able to truly grow up if he stays here forever. Without experiencing the hardships of the outside world, little Fatty's mind will never truly mature. Furthermore, I believe you know that little Fatty doesn't like this kind of life either. Since you care about little Fatty so much, you should consider his growth more. He can't grow up in your embrace forever, or he won't be able to truly grow up. Not only will you not help him by restricting him like this, you'll even harm him." Uncle Xiao fell silent when he heard that. As someone who had wandered the Tianyuan continent for countless years and had experienced many storms, how could he not understand something like this? However, he really did not want little Fatty to set foot in the outside world. He had experienced far too many things and had already seen through the nature of the world. He only hoped that little Fatty could live here peacefully without being tainted by the world. He wanted to retain a pure heart and cultivate peacefully. Afterwards, Xianxia gave a large number of reasons to persuade Uncle Xiao to relent. In order to help little Fatty escape from this bitter life, Xianxia had basically racked his brains and used all the reasons he could think of. Perhaps Xianxia had hit the nail on the head, but Uncle Xiao remained silent the entire time. He ate like a machine and did not express any opinions. "Grandfather, I've never seen the outside world before. I really want to go out and take a look." Little Fatty also looked at Uncle Xiao pleadingly as he spoke pitifully. "Father, Xianxia is right. I know that you've already reached a level that we can't catch up to. You've seen through the nature of the world, but little Fatty is still an inexperienced Saint Master. He has never experienced anything like that. He doesn't even know what the outside world is like. Just because you can see through it doesn't mean little Fatty has seen through it. If little Fatty doesn't go out and experience some setbacks, he'll probably never be able to mature. Father, if you're really thinking for little Fatty, you should let him go out and gain some experience so that he'll have the ability to deal with anything that comes up in the future." Little Fatty's mother also pleaded. Her voice was gentle and graceful. Her manner of speech was like that of a young lady from a large family, as if she was the daughter of a large family. Under the pressure of Xianxia and little Fatty, Uncle Xiao finally relented. He let out a long sigh and said, forget it. What you've said is not without reason. I was too stubborn before. Little Fatty, since you want to go out and explore the outside world, Grandfather won't stop you." "Really, Grandfather? You really agree to let me go out and explore the outside world?" Little Fatty was overjoyed. He was extremely emotional. Seeing little Fatty's emotional expression, Uncle Xiao could not help but sigh inside. At this moment, he could not help but ask himself whether it was right or wrong for him to leave little Fatty here. Uncle Xiao placed a mouthful of food into his mouth and said, "Little Fatty, if you want to leave, Grandfather won't stop you. However, you must have the strength of an Earth Saint Master." All right, grandfather. I will definitely cultivate diligently in the future so that I can break through to Earth's Saint Master as soon as possible. Little Fatty was not discouraged at all. Instead, he was excited. Seeing how happy little Fatty was, his mother could not help but smile faintly. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. During these 3 days, Xianxia and little Fatty had chopped down quite a lot of wood and rebuilt an even larger wooden hut where the fire had originally been. They had basically fulfilled their promise. After the wooden hut was built, Xianxia bid farewell to little Fatty. He promised to visit him on this day next year and take him away once he broke through to Earth's Saint Master. Afterwards, Xianxia left with the white tiger in his arms. Before he left, a space ring appeared in his hand. It had been given to him by Uncle Xiao. It contained a few heavenly resources he had collected in the myriad mountains over the years. He had given them all to Xianxia in hopes of helping the white tiger grow faster. Xianxia quickly flew over the myriad mountains with the white tiger in his arms. He constantly thought about how he could find a space gate to return to the kingdom of Jesson. This place was just too far away from the kingdom of Jesson. Even if Xianxia flew non-stop, it would still take him a very long time to get there. The only quick and simple method was to use a space gate. Unfortunately, space gates were just too rare on the Tianyuan continent. Although there were space gates everywhere in Mercenary City, he did not have the right to use them. He did not know of any other space gates aside from Mercenary City. Woo woo. The white tiger in Xianxia's arms suddenly began to cry out loudly, interrupting Xianxia's thoughts. The white tiger stared at the ground behind it as it waved its paws randomly in the air. Xianxia stared at the white tiger in confusion. He had no idea what it was doing. Woo woo. The white tiger kicked around in Xianxia's arms as it constantly cried out while pointing at the forest behind it. Its wings opened and closed slightly as if it wanted to fly out of Xianxia's arms. Xianxia hugged the white tiger tightly and gently stroked its furry head. Afterward, he returned in the direction the white tiger had pointed out before landing in a dense forest. As soon as Xianxia's feet touched the ground, the white tiger leapt out of his arms. It ran along the ground with its powerful limbs and very soon stopped before the roots of an ancient tree that was over 100 meters tall. Xianxia walked over to take a look and couldn't help but laugh. It turned out that there was a lingzhi growing there. The lingzhi was purple in color and wasn't very big. It was only about 20 centimeters tall and 10 centimeters wide. However, looking at the white tiger's drooling appearance, Xianxia knew that this was a heavenly treasure that was quite old. Although the size and age of the Ganoderma lucidum were somewhat unsightly, not every heavenly material and earthly treasure would grow larger with age. Xianxia carefully dug up the lingzhi. As soon as he held it in his hands, a furry little head impatiently came over. Its cute little nose kept sniffing around the lingzhi. Eat it. Xianxia chuckled and directly put the lingzhi in front of the white tiger's mouth. The white tiger let out a cry of joy and swallowed the lingzhi in one gulp. Then it closed its eyes and went back to sleep to digest the medicinal power. Chapter 389. This time, the journey back was very peaceful. Xianxia flew across the 100,000 mountains without encountering any attacks from flying magical beasts. After leaving the 100,000 mountains, Xianxia floated 1,000 meters in the air. The fierce winds in the air whistled as they brushed past Xianxia, causing Xianxia's white robes to flutter in the wind. Xianxia hugged the white tiger with his left hand as he took out a map from his space ring with his right hand. The map recorded the terrain within 300,000 kilometers. The kingdom of Jesson was too far away, so it didn't appear on the map at all. Xianxia carefully scanned the map. All the countries within 300,000 kilometers appeared in Xianxia's eyes, including the location of Mercenary City. Xianxia's eyes paused on Mercenary City for a while as he sighed inwardly. He then carefully observed his surroundings again. He believed that he had sufficient strength now. Moreover, the kingdom of Jesson was most likely at war right now. Xianxia knew nothing about the situation there, so he had to hurry back as soon as possible. Otherwise, if he delayed for too long, the kingdom of Jesson would be conquered. At that time, he would face the tragedy of losing his family. This was something that Jianchen didn't want to see the most. Right now, Jianchen could only hope to find an organization with a space gate on the map. Then, he could use the space gate to travel to the kingdom of Jessen. This was the only way for him to hurry back. Suddenly, a section of the map labeled Qin Empire appeared before Jianchen's eyes. Seeing this, Jianchen's eyes lit up. He immediately thought of Qin Ji, whom he had befriended at the mercenary tournament. With a flip of his hand, a palm-sized jade pendant appeared in Jianchen's hand. A large Qin character was written on the jade pendant. This was the personal jade pendant that Qin Ji had given him before they parted ways. Looking at the valuable jade pendant in his hand, Jianchen muttered to himself, "Since Qin Ji has an emperor armament and a barrier within him, then the Qin Empire must be very powerful. I wonder if they have a space gate." Jianchen floated in the air and hesitated for a while. In the end, he gritted his teeth and decided to make a trip to the Qin Empire first. Whether the Qin Empire had a space gate or not, he had to give it a try. The Qin Empire was located 100,000 kilometers north of Mercenary City. It was about 120,000 kilometers away from Jianchen's current location. It would take some time for him to get there. Jianchen controlled the wind essence between heaven and earth to fly. Although his speed was slower than using the Flickering Shadows Thousand Illusions and the Heaven-seizing Fortune Art, he could still cover a distance of 1,500 kilometers in 2 hours. In this way, Jianchen could cover a distance of 20,000 kilometers in 24 hours. After 7 days of flying, Jianchen finally arrived at the border of the Qin Empire. During these 7 days, Jianchen rarely rested and spent almost all of his time on the road. The white tiger had also been fed a large amount of heavenly treasures by Jianchen. It had been in a deep sleep all day to digest the medicinal effects. However, after consuming a large amount of heavenly treasures, the white tiger's growth had become extremely fast. It was now a meter long and weighed 50 kilograms. Jianchen found it difficult to hold it in his arms. Its strength had also soared to the stage of a rank 2 magical beast. Perhaps it was because the white tiger was a divine beast, the winged tiger. Its strength could be piled up with a large amount of heavenly treasures without leaving behind any side effects. It was not like humans, who would rapidly increase their strength by absorbing energy from monster cores for a long period of time. This would cause their foundation to become unstable, which would be a great hindrance to their future cultivation path. In front of them, there was an ancient city wall that was over 100 meters tall. It was like a long dragon crawling on the ground, blocking the line between heaven and earth. It was mighty and majestic, giving people a feeling that it was as vast as a mountain. Above the gate of the ancient city wall, there were 3 large words written in flamboyant calligraphy, Qinhuang Kingdom. This was the border fortress of the Qin Empire. As soon as they approached it, the originally quiet region immediately became lively. Jianchen hovered over 1,000 meters in the air and looked down at the ground. He could only see a crowd that was smaller than ants going in and out of the Qin Empire's border fortress. Mixed among them were many caravans carrying large carts of goods. Jianchen did not follow the normal path of entering the Qin Empire through the gate of the fortress. Instead, he directly flew 1,000 meters in the air and directly flew into the Qin Empire's territory without any disguise. Although Jianchen's actions were noticed by a few of the soldiers guarding the fortress, they did not move at all. They only watched on enviously as Jianchen flew into the distance. This was because a Heaven Saint Master did indeed have this privilege. Even if they wanted to stop him, they did not have the ability to do so. The Qin Empire's territory was extremely large. It was 4 to 5 times larger than the kingdom of Jessen. Jianchen flew another 10,000 kilometers and finally arrived at the capital of the Qin Empire on the 2nd day, the Qin Imperial City. This was a king-level city. Its scale was only second to the 7 major cities of the Tianyuan continent. It was extremely prosperous. Jianchen flew into the Qin Imperial City and landed in a remote area near the Imperial Palace. He then carried the sleeping white tiger in his arms and walked towards the palace gate. "Stop! What are you doing?" A few great Saint Master guards at the entrance of the imperial palace immediately stopped Xianxia and asked. Xianxia expressionlessly took out a jade pendant and said, "I'm looking for Qin Ji." "How dare you? How can the third prince's name be called so casually?" As soon as Xianxia finished speaking, a guard immediately shouted from behind him. "The third prince?" Hearing this, Xianxia's heart skipped a beat. He never thought that Qin Ji really was a prince of the Qin Empire. When the guard standing in front of Xianxia heard Xianxia directly call out Qin Ji's name, his eyes also became somewhat sharp. However, when he saw the jade pendant in Xianxia's hand, his expression immediately changed. He cried out in surprise, "This is the imperial jade bestowed by His Majesty." Hearing this, the face of the guard who was shouting earlier also changed. He hurriedly shrunk his neck and silently retreated. "Young master, can you let me examine the jade pendant?" The guard in front of Xianxia's tone became much more polite. Even the way he addressed him changed. Xianxia didn't say anything and directly handed the jade pendant that Qin Ji gave him to the guard. The guard respectfully took the jade pendant and carefully turned it over in his hand for a while. After confirming that it was real, he returned the jade pendant to Xianxia's hand and said, "Young master, please leave your name. We will go inform the third prince." Xianxia, "Young master Xianxia, please wait a moment." After the guard said this, he immediately called someone over and whispered something in his ear. Then, that person quickly ran into the imperial palace. The waiting time wasn't short. Xianxia stood in front of the imperial palace for almost an hour before he finally saw a luxuriously robed youth hastily walk out of the imperial palace. Behind the youth were two beautiful young maids. "Greetings to the third prince." As soon as the youth left the imperial palace, the dozen or so great Saint Master guards immediately knelt down on one knee and respectfully bowed. This youth was precisely Qin Ji. "All of you rise," Qin Ji indifferently said. Then his eyes landed on Xianxia. However, when he saw Xianxia's current appearance, he couldn't help but be stunned. Then he walked up with a face full of smiles and said, "Brother Xianxia, I never thought it would really be you. However, how did you become like this? Not only is your hair gone, even your eyebrows and eyelashes are gone. Don't tell me you were burned by a fire? I almost couldn't recognize you." Xianxia awkwardly smiled and said, "I ran into some trouble a while ago, which is why I ended up in such a sorry state." Xianxia and Qin Ji exchanged a few pleasantries. Then, Xianxia was invited into the imperial palace by Qin Ji. In a dazzling palace, a banquet was set up and Xianxia was warmly received. During the banquet, Xianxia and Qin Ji casually chatted about some topics. They chatted happily as if they were friends who hadn't seen each other for many years. From time to time, the two of them would laugh heartily. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, Xianxia immediately entered the main topic. He looked at Qin Ji with a serious expression and asked, "Brother Qin Ji, I came this time because there is something I might need your help with." Qin Ji also knew that Xianxia would never visit a temple without a reason, so he chuckled. "Brother Xianxia, feel free to tell me what you need help with. As long as it's within my capabilities, I will definitely not refuse." Xianxia became rather stern. "Brother Qin Ji, I urgently need to go to a place through a space gate right now. May I ask if there are any space gates in your Qin Empire?" With that, Xianxia stared at Qin Ji nervously. Qin Ji was slightly surprised, but then he smiled easily, "And I thought it was something important. Brother Xianxia, you've come to the right place in our Qin Empire if you're looking for a space gate. In the surrounding 100,000 kilometers, only our great Qin Empire has a space gate apart from Mercenary City." Xianxia was overjoyed when he heard that. He hurriedly said, "Brother Qin Ji, I'll have to trouble you with this matter. I hope I can use your space gate." Qin Ji chuckled, "Brother Xianxia, don't worry. Leave it to me. Although the space gates in our Qin Empire are not open to the public, there are always exceptions. I'll talk to my father about this when I return. It shouldn't be too difficult." "In that case, thank you, Brother Qin Ji." Xianxia was filled with gratitude. At the same time, he was extremely happy. He had finally found a space gate, so he could quickly return to the kingdom of Jessen. Qin Ji downed the wine in his cup in a single gulp before picking up some delicacies with his chopsticks and chewing leisurely. He said with a muffled voice, "However, Brother Jianchen, I suggest you wait 3 days before leaving through a space gate." But Jianchen was confused. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.